Hey, everybody, it is Trags. And this week we have a second special emergency edition of the Red Sox Beat here on CLNS Media. Of course, the Red Sox beat the New York Yankees 6-2 in the wild card game on Tuesday night before a raucous crowd of 38,000 at Fenway Park. To discuss it all and, yes, look ahead to the American League Divisional Series with the Tampa Bay Rays, I welcome back old friend Alex Barth of 98.5, the Sports Hub. Follow him on Twitter at @RealAlexBarth, all one word. Pretty entertaining game, I'd say, for Red Sox fans on Tuesday night, beginning in the first inning with the two-run homer by Xander Bogaerts. Wouldn't you say, Alex?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think, from a fan point of view, it was what you look for, where there was just enough drama and nervousness to make you feel alive, but not quite enough that it ever became too scary to handle. And I mean, we'll get into
Good
it,
way
but
to put it.
When he took Evaldi out there, when Cora took Evaldi out there, and I know he'd given up a couple of hits, but he's pitching well, and you think, like this, we've seen this before. This decision has come back to haunt managers, and kind of scooted to the end of your seat a little bit. But besides that, I don't know that there was ever too much doubt on the Red Sox fans' part. I think that Matt Vasgersian and what's his name down there in New York, they had their moments of uncertainty, especially there in the first inning. Not A-Rod, no, their Yankees radio announcer.
Oh, got
it. John Sterling. I don't know if you saw the clip
of him
in the first inning. Oh, you haven't seen that?
I need to go back and watch it.
Do you want to just start right here? I mean, I'll tell you. So you saw Vasgersian, right? So you saw Vasgersian, right, where he thought that ball hit in the first inning was a home run?
Yes. I know exactly what you were talking about. And to be honest, I'm like, oh, my goodness. That is a bomb. It's gone. And I think everybody was fooled, including Mike Stanton himself, right?
Yes. And by the way, the camera work,
Stanton. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the camera work from ESPN didn't help. And I think they had microphones in the bats because everything sounded off the bat like it was going 500 feet. Anyway, so yeah, Vasgersian was fooled, but he at least figured it out when the ball hit the wall. If you find the John Sterling call online, Sterling never realizes it wasn't a home run. He goes into his whole, the drawn out a Stantonian home run, and what a blast it was. And then all of a sudden he gets quiet and he goes, wait, what did I do wrong? Why is he standing on first base? What did I do wrong? It's so funny. It's so funny. I'll send it to you. You got to check it out.
Please, I would love to hear that. Easy enough to listen to it wherever. But look, I just thought from that moment, it was bad juju for the Yankees. And I think, when Bogey hits that bomb to center field on a really terrible 89-mile-an-hour changeup from Garrett Cole, you knew it was going to be a Red Sox night. Yes, there is the past, but I think even we in New England, all Red Sox fans, have to get over this. Woe is us. The Red Sox, the curse of the Bambino is still with us. It still hovers over everybody. No, it does not. The Red Sox have won 8 of their last 9 postseason games against the Yankees.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was talking to my dad about this game, and my dad, who was probably about my age, maybe a little younger, for Bucky Dent, and had to live through that. He lived through 03, all of that. I mean, I saw 03, but I was really young. But anyway, the point being, he said, that game doesn't happen 20, 30 years ago. Like, Red Sox fans don't, as soon as Evaldi's pulled from that game, people are turning the TV off and they're hitting the panic button. And he said it's just a very different vibe than he had ever seen a Red Sox Yankees meaningful game have. And, to an extent, I agree. Again, I'm a little younger. Again, I didn't experience Dent. I was probably in bed when Boone hit his home run. I remember that series. I have a vague memory of that exact moment. I remember 04 pretty well, but, it doesn't feel like the Red Sox don't feel like the little brother anymore. If anything, the Yankees in New York are starting to show a little bit of an inferiority complex. I don't know if you saw the New York Post and their cover and their whole article about why Boston's inferior, which they had one decent point in there. I forget what it was, but outside of that, it was a bunch of BS. They're complaining about the monster when their team had wanted to play at Fenway if they got their choice, if there was the 4-way tie, and they're still bitching about, you shouldn't have a wall like that. It's not baseball. That wall's been there longer than most of them have.
Okay, the irony of that is the most famous home run arguably ever hit at Fenway Park helped the Yankees win their second straight World Series in 1978. I don't know if there's another ballpark, especially in the majors at that time, where Bucky Dent's fly ball to left field off Mike Torres is a home run. I just don't. I think it's a routine fly ball, maybe moderately deep left field, maybe on the warning track of most ballparks. But because that game was at Fenway Park in 1978, it was a home run into the screen, and it propelled the Yankees to their second straight World Series. That is the irony.
I need you to tweet that so I can show it to all these Yankees fans complaining about the wall and the wall and the wall and the wall.
It's ridiculous. Look, you're right. They have an inferiority complex. Look, the Red Sox didn't spend $324 million on a picture to crap the bed after 2 innings and not even get through the third inning.
Yes.
Right?
That was, I mean, I kind of likened it. And we talked about this. This was a great call. You're the one who brought it up on, when did we talk? On Monday. About Garrett Cole and specifically the splits at Fenway Park. I likened it to an extent to Peyton Manning at Gillette Stadium. There's a boogeyman there, and it gets exasperated when you get to the playoffs. And you mentioned that curveball home run, right? That was kind of the first turning point in that game. And I remember because I actually ended up watching the StatCast broadcast because
you mean the changeup? There was the
changeup, yes.
Yeah, changeup, not
the
curveball.
Changeup.
Right.
And I was watching the StatCast broadcast because as much as I hate math, I'd had enough of A-Rod. And they actually brought up, and I thought this was telling, that was the first changeup that Cole had thrown that went for a home run against a right-handed batter this season. So that was, talk about getting in his head. This has been his go-to pitch against righties all year. Nobody's hit it out all year, at least no righties. And Xander just is all over it. I think in that moment changed something for him mentally because he wasn't the same. Not that he was great, but he wasn't the same after he allowed that home run.
No, if I were Garrett Cole, I would have started throwing all fastballs. I say that, and then of course he throws a 97-mile-an-hour fastball above the belt, really top of the strike zone, and Kyle Schwarber obliterates it 450 feet into the alley in straightaway right field, and that made it 3-0 in the third inning, and the Red Sox weren't going to blow that lead. 2-0, and had that been a 1-run game in the 6th inning after Alex Cora had pulled Nate Eovaldi, maybe I changed my tune a little bit, but at 3-0, I just felt like that was the ball game. The Yankees are not coming anywhere close to touching Eovaldi on this night, not like 12 days ago or whatever it was that Friday night when the Yankees beat them 8-3. It had a completely different feel than that. And the Red Sox, give it to them because they went into that game without one of their 3 top bats, and JD Martinez out with a sprained ankle. We don't know how long he's going to be out, and I think the Red Sox certainly have the offensive depth to really not miss a beat. Would they like JD Martinez in the lineup? Of course they would. By all rights, he would be the DH. But that's just not going to be the case. Doesn't have to be the case, I think, for the Red Sox to give the Tampa Bay Rays all they can handle and have a chance to win the best out of 5 series.
So it's funny. I was talking to Matt McCarthy from 98.5 The Sports Hub last night, and he brought up an interesting point that the Red Sox, just on the way he's performed, actually might be a better lineup without JD Martinez in. And obviously, that discounts a few things there because, it's not he's a valuable part of the team. You want him around. But given kind of what they did at the deadline and the way their roster looks, it allows you to DH Schwarber, which helps you defensively in the outfield. It gets Kike Hernandez in the outfield. And we saw last night how important having Kike Hernandez out there is. Verdugo misplays that ball in left field, and Hernandez stops that run from scoring by a lot. And look, Phil Nevin shouldn't have sent Aaron Judge, but Hernandez and Bogart still made the play, and that was another turning moment in that game.
By the way, a quick PS, a postscript to that play. Yes, it was probably a terrible decision by Phil Nevin to send Aaron Judge on that play at the plate. The next play was a pop out to third base. He likely doesn't score. And really what I think is going through Nevin's mind at that point, and I don't think Alex Rodriguez was thinking of this when he criticized him and Vasgersian the same way. The Yankees were not hitting Nate Eovaldi. They felt desperate. We need to get this second run in to put some pressure on Eovaldi. That's why he was sent to the plate. Had the Yankees been showing the ability to work Eovaldi, get that pitch count up, and we're hitting him all over Fenway Park, different story. I don't think he does send him. But because they were struggling so badly, the Yankee offense was not getting anything out of anybody. I think that's why they decided that's why Nevin decided to send him.
So that's a really interesting point, actually, because if you go back, you watch that replay, Nevin never really looks at the ball. He's kind of just watching Judge the whole time.
Right.
And I wondered why he did that. It's his job to kind of see where the play is at because the runner's not looking and let the runner know whether or not to go. And Nevin's not looking at the play. And I was like, am I looking at this wrong? Is he out of it? Did I miss something? But what you're saying now actually makes sense because he in his head knew he had to send him regardless of where the ball was. So that would actually explain where he was looking. So that's a very interesting point. But yeah, I thought that how did we get into this again? I thought that was a turning point in the game. So right. We're talking about
that was
JD Martinez.
Play in the game.
So I think that there is inherent value when he comes back. And by the way, we still don't know. The latest report was that they're going to test him out tomorrow, Martinez, before they have to set the official roster. And, his splits against righties and lefties this year, he's hitting 11 points better against righties. He's slugging significantly better against righties. There may be some sort of case that JD Martinez should be a platoon player here down the stretch. And if it helps you get Kike Hernandez in the outfield, if it helps you get Kyle Schwarber in the lineup as your DH, kind of settles things down at first base, unless JD Martinez heats back up, I actually think that there may be a discussion to be had there. I'm not saying leave him off the playoff roster entirely, but I don't know that he's the everyday bat that he was in 2018 right now.
Before we wrap it up on the wild card game, I want to address something that Alex Rodriguez said on the broadcast last night.
Here we go.
That I don't know if you know where I'm going with this. You might.
I don't. I had to turn him off. He was too painful. But I'm excited to hear this.
You can mark it down. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. You can mark it down. Garrett Cole will be the 2022 American League Cy Young Award winner because of what happened in the wild card game. I'm not going that far. I mean, you are what you are. And if you can't, he was good this year. He was very good. He was 15-8 with a 3.21 ERA, a 1.08, 1.09 whip. He was very solid. He was the ace of the Yankee rotation. But to make that jump just because of one bad performance, I understand where A-Rod is going with the argument from a Yankee fan perspective, and that's what A-Rod was sounding like when he made that statement. But I didn't see it last night. I didn't see it this year. Maybe he rebounds tremendously, but he's got a lot of mileage right now on that arm, and he's going to have to really change, I think, a lot of the way he attacks hitters, and he certainly can't do what he did last night in big situations.
And here's what I would add to that. First off, I hope that right after A-Rod said that is when Fenway Park played Jennifer Lopez. I don't know how those two things timed up, but I hope those two related. Cole he was good. There was a significant dip from his 2 years in Houston and his 1 year with the Yankees. The significant statistical drop off. We saw last night he's not the mentally strongest guy. So the concept that somehow going to make him better, I think that was kind of disproven last night. No, wait, what is this?
Well, when one of the cameras caught him on the mound mouthing, and I believe there were people speculating that what he was saying is "I'm done," which was understandable. I mean, he just didn't have any control, any command. He couldn't get anybody out. He was all over the strike or out of the strike zone, as the case were. He just couldn't get anybody out, and he had no confidence in his stuff to get the Red Sox batters out.
SAWFT soft. Yeah, that really sounds like a guy who's going to come back and win the Cy Young next year. The other thing I'd add is he's got to pitch in that Little League ballpark that is Yankee Stadium 15, 16, 17 times during the season. That's not conducive. That ballpark is not conducive to one of your pitchers winning Cy Young. If anybody on that team is going to win Cy Young, it's Loizaga. That kid can freaking pitch. He's nasty. And I mean, as a closer, won it since Gagne, I don't know. But if anybody's going to be the next one, it should be that kid. I really like him. But Garrett Cole pitching in Yankee Stadium, given what we saw last night, nothing about what I saw last night from him tells me this guy's going to be a Cy Young contender next year. They really, if they're going to put A-Rod in the booth, they should put David Ortiz in the booth with him. I said that going into the game, and I'll keep saying it. Or at least put Millar up there, or put, get Eckersley, something. Get freaking Ellsbury up there.
I know. Eck would be unbiased. Eck with A-Rod.
Oh, yeah. He'd shove him in a locker. Literally,
they'd be struggling to throw each other out of the booth. They would be, I'm sure of that.
You need to so for instance, right, Sunday Night Football, they have Dungy, but they also have Rodney Harrison. And so when they talk about the Patriots and Peyton Manning or whatever, like, they play off each other well. Somebody needs to counter A-Rod. And by the way, Matt Vasgersian, who are you rooting for last night, Matt? I really couldn't tell. Trying to will that ball out in the first inning. They need some Red Sox life in that booth, especially when these two teams play each other.
Speaking with Alex Barth of 98.5, the Sports Hub. Follow him on Twitter at @RealAlexBarth, all one word. All right, we already teased what we are really here to talk all about, and that's Red Sox Rays 2021 American League Division Series. It starts Thursday night. You can catch all the action 8 o'clock Eastern Time on FS1. The lineup, courtesy our good friend Ian Brown at Red Sox and MLB.com, is projected as this. It's not official, obviously, but Alex, you were mentioning Kike Hernandez. He would lead off and play center field. Hunter Renfroe in right field, batting second. Batting third would be, of course, Rafael Devers at third base. The shortstop, Xander Bogaerts, bats cleanup. The DH, Kyle Schwarber, bats fifth. The first baseman and Mr. Overlooked in my book, Bobby Dahlbeck at first base. Kevin Plawecki, not Christian Vasquez, doing the catching of Eduardo Rodriguez in game number one. Batting eighth, and really maybe the best number 8 hitter in baseball, left fielder Alex Verdugo, certainly the most productive. And then the bottom of the lineup, batting ninth and playing second base, Christian Arroyo. What do you think? So
wait, was Martinez in there or no? I'm sorry.
No, he was not. I don't think they're counting on him playing, by the way.
I was just going to add to that, the latest report, and this was as of 5 o'clock on Monday from Pete Abe. JD Martinez doing better, will test his ankle today. Again, that's Monday. So yeah, it sounds like they're not counting on it, but I like that lineup. I think it's very similar, obviously, to the one that they just used against the Yankees. If it's not exactly the same, I don't know if I'm missing something.
I think JD Martinez will be active. I think he'll be on the roster, available to pinch hit in an emergency situation in a 5-game series. Yes, I do. I think they'll have him available off the bench. Certainly, in a DH situation, he could come in, and if Cora thinks that he's healthy enough, maybe even pinch hit for Schwarber. And you obviously don't impact the defensive lineup and how you are setting people up out in the field defensively. So I could see that being a scenario.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for him for like that Kirk Gibson moment, right, where he's just smacks the balls wobbling around the bases. But yeah, I think you kind of got to go with the group that got you here. That's the group that did against the Yankees. You said Plawecki, right, in a catcher. I like that. Yep. I thought he had a good game last night. I like that they're putting Kike Hernandez back in the outfield. Again, we saw the value in that. How many times did this team get killed down the stretch just because they didn't have real outfielders playing the outfield, whether it was Schwarber, JD Martinez. So I like that lineup. I think that that's as good as they're going to get right now. And yeah, I'd be careful with JD Martinez. If you really need him, you can bring him back. But I do think, again, I think they should put him on the roster, because once they don't get him back until potentially the CS. So even if he's not ready to go for game one, I still think you put him on the roster. I think they had like Ara Uz on the roster last night, right? Like, you don't need to carry him if you have Arroyo. Get JD Martinez on there, and then you kind of see and go with him. But I do like that group for game one. And I think I saw it's Erod starting for game one, right?
That is
for
correct.
Game two. Yeah. So I like, sorry, go ahead.
Now, who did you say for game two?
Sale,
correct. On normal rest.
Abraham. Yeah. So, and that's why I like that, because, you think conventionally, let's get Chris Sale out there game one. You want to start out on the right foot. But first of all, I'm an Erod truther. I get he struggled. I think he's better than he's been. I don't know that he'll ever be the guy again that flirted with the Cy Young in 2019, but I think he's better than the guy he's been this year. But I like Sale on normal rest, because if you need to stretch him out, you can stretch him out, and maybe he goes 6 innings, even into the 7th, which would be huge. So I'll take that extra day of rest to get Chris Sale an extra inning or extra inning plus.
You know as well as I do that Eduardo Rodriguez has the capability of looking like absolute dog crap in one start, and just not looking like he's in it mentally at all. Go from that to looking like Cy Young in the next start, and that could happen in the postseason. And he did it in the 2018 World Series. He has that capability in him, and I think Alex Cora likes that about him. It obviously would rather do less with the mediocre Erod and more with I'm gonna shove it right up their butts type of mentality that he showed in the 2018 postseason, especially in the World Series at Dodger Stadium. That's what he wants to see.
Right. And then I guess the next question is, game 3 back in Fenway would be Sunday. Do you go Nick Pivetta in that game, or do you go back to
Nathan
Eovaldi
Eovaldi
on regular rest? So you would go Eovaldi there, and then if there's a game 4, you go Pivetta. I think some of it depends on how these first 2 games go.
Sure. I mean, in a shortened series, you have to manage that way. I mean, you don't get a chance to, extra number 3 starter in stone, and nor should you. I mean, if you're down 0-2 or you're up 0-2, if you're up 2-0 rather, Nick Pivetta is definitely a viable alternative. I like Tanner Houck in the bullpen. I thought he looked really good in the wild card game on Tuesday night. I don't think the situation is going to be too big for him. And one of the reasons I don't think it's ever going to get too big for these guys is the way the organization brings them up. And Alex Cora, as the manager, is going to keep them loose and put them right into the game. I think having Tanner Houck get his feet wet in a playoff game at Fenway Park, do or die game, although the Red Sox were well ahead, it's still a do or die game, winner take all. That kind of environment, to put a guy like Tanner Houck in there and have him respond, with a scoreless inning, I think is a big deal.
Yeah, I liked how he used the bullpen last night. I was a little nervous about Robles. I thought Whitlock or Houck would throw 2 innings, because again, I've talked about it. Like, Robles has been great. I'm not saying he hasn't, but to me, he's a guy that's due. Like, this isn't who he is, right? He's been too good for too long, and it's coming. But besides that,
I thought that. You are what you are. If you're starting to pitch really well, there's no voodoo child coming in telling you, okay, it's your time is up for good karma. Now it's time for you to suck. I just don't think that happens.
It's not so much that, it's more regressing to the mean, right? Where it's just,
I think I'm more of the belief, Alex, you ride the hot hand.
Okay. And that's fair. But I still think the 2 most important, and this isn't breaking news, I still think the 2 most important pieces in their bullpen this year, or in this playoffs, are Whitlock and Houck. And I think those are the 2 guys that you have to circle, and they're going to kind of go as far pitching wise as those 2 take them. We'll see if the offense can do their part, but to get each of those guys.
Talking about, not to interrupt you as I am wont to do, but you're talking about 2 rookies as the linchpins of your bullpen. But by your assertion.
Well, and that's a little terrifying, but do you disagree? Like, are you going to Ottavino? Or are you going to Barnes? Like, what?
I don't know. That's what I'd love to know about how Alex Cora really feels about those kids in tense big game situations. Like, let's say it's 2-2. Let's say the series is tied 2 games apiece, game 5, bottom of the 8th inning, and you're in a tie game with runners on first and third, and you need, a ground ball. Are you comfortable going to Tanner Houck in that situation? Would you do it? If he felt if you felt he was the best guy for that situation and his stuff could generate a ground ball, would you do it?
See, if I'm going lefty, maybe, or if it's a lefty, maybe Brazier. But yeah, honestly, I might. I think that I'll steal a Bill Belichick line here. When you get at a certain point late in the season, there's no more rookies, right? And I get it's a different environment here, but again, I don't necessarily trust anybody else. I'm not necessarily thrilled about Houck or Whitlock being those guys, but they're still the best option. Maybe it's the best of a bad situation, but they're still the best option. And the other reason I'm putting them on a pedestal like this, it's not just because of how good they've been, but and we've talked about this, that Andrew Miller role, that's just so crucial in the playoffs. That stretch reliever that can give you 2 or 3 innings, 2-3 times in a 7-game series. That role is so important the way playoff baseball is played. Somebody pointed this out last night. You had arguably the top 2 candidates for the AL Cy Young in a winner-go-home game, and they threw a combined 121 pitches. It's all about the bullpen in the playoffs, and you need those guys that can stretch you out. And Whitlock and Houck are those guys in that role. I'm not necessarily saying either of them should be the closer. I was actually a little surprised Whitlock closed last night, but here's the real situation I'm looking at is the one that happened last night when it's 2-3-4 in the 8th inning in a close game. Give me Houck or Whitlock. Give me Houck. Frankly, give them to me 1 inning early. Let them get 8-9-1, get them warmed up, and then 2-3-4, and it saves the bullpen. You put your best arm out there against their best hitters. Like, that's the situation to me where I don't know who else I'm turning to in that spot. I think those 2 guys, and again, they're rookies, but that everybody has their caveat, right? Ottavino's been wildly inconsistent. Matt Barnes has just been bad in the second half of the season. Josh Taylor, there's splits issues. Ryan Brazier, again, has been really good, but in kind of a limited window. He doesn't have an extensive body of work this year. It sounds crazy, but if we're talking about the butts, but they're rookies is actually the least concerning one to me in that bullpen right now.
Speaking with Alex Barth of 98.5, the Sports Hub. Follow him on Twitter at Real Alex Barth, all one word. Today's show is powered by the Legends brand, an athlete-owned apparel brand popping up seemingly everywhere these days, including many pro locker rooms and on some of today's top athletes. Legends is owned in part by athletes like Steve Nash, Matt Barnes, Baker Mayfield, NFL legend and local hero Willie McGinnis, and even former Celtic Marcus Morris Sr., among many others. Legends makes high-performance apparel with a style and comfort you'll want to wear all day. Visit legends.com today and see why athletes everywhere are swapping out their big box brands for Legends apparel. Use the code SOX20, that's SOX20, and save 20% on your first order. Again, that's legends.com. Use that promo code SOX20. The offer ends October 10th. Back with Alex Barth of 98.5 The Sports Hub. And you can follow him on Twitter at Real Alex Barth. Apparently, he doesn't know how to center himself on his camera as we're doing this podcast. Are you with us?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You could move over to your right just a tad.
Well, see, I get because there's this light behind me and it screws it up. So I don't have like a perfect way to balance everything here.
Way to prep for this podcast. I appreciate it, Alex. You come through for us all the time. You're awesome. All right. Let's spend some time as we wrap it up on the Tampa Bay Rays and the things that the Red Sox are going to have to do. First of all, their starting pitching is going to have to control the top 5 batters in their order, which figure to be Randy Rosarina playing left field, Wander Franco, the super sensation rookie that was brought up in midseason, and he hasn't disappointed. He is their shortstop. DH Nelson Cruz, who has experience up the wazoo. This will not be a bigger than life situation for him, batting third. Batting fourth, cleanup, is third baseman Yandy Diaz, and batting fifth, second baseman likely to be batting fifth, Brandon Lau, with a lot of pop. He had 3 homers in a game, I believe recently against the New York Yankees, a blowout win as the Tampa Bay Rays clinched a 100-win season and the best record in the American League. That's one thing. And the other thing is their rotation. The Red Sox are going to face Shane McClanahan in game number 1. And it seems like we say this every year, Alex Barth, about Tampa Bay pitchers. He had a breakout year as a young pitcher in the Rays rotation. He's a left-hander. He had a 10-6 record this past year, 3.43 ERA. He starts game 1 a little more than a year after he became the first pitcher in MLB history to make his debut in the postseason. He posted a 3.01 ERA with 99 strikeouts over the last 3 months of the season. And, he is a guy that is really, I think, going to try and give Tampa Bay a boost right out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got to bank on him because without Glass now,
Right.
And we talked about this a while ago. Like, I thought Tampa was out of it without Glass now because I wasn't a huge fan of their pitching rotation. Now, McClanahan's come on, and sometimes it's hard to project with rookies, right? And he's obviously been that guy, so he checks a box. But Ryan Yarbrough struggled, Michael Wacha struggled. So if you're the Red Sox, and this is obviously easier said than done, if you can take a game started by McClanahan, you really put the Rays in a corner. It's not impossible for the Red Sox to win it if they lose game one, but it kind of becomes tough for the Rays to win it, right? If they lose it, because then their pitching potentially gets totally blown up. So McClanahan is a pivotal player in this series. I don't have his splits in front of the Red Sox. I'm going to pull those up right now because I'm actually curious, but I think this first game is going to tell us a lot, again, because of the difference between what he's been able to do and what the rest of their starters have been able to do this year without Michael Wacha. Without Tyler Glass now.
Right. And I've got the splits up or I don't have the splits up in front of me, but when you take a look at Tampa Bay, Alex, you talk about their bullpen. Their bullpen is their pitching strength, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any question about that.
I'd agree with that.
They have relied on their arms out of the bullpen game after game after game this year. And I think, what you're trying to do, if you're the Red Sox, is get to their starting pitching so their bullpen gets worn down, if that's possible, in a 5-game series.
Yeah. I think if you got to take it to their starters. You've got to take it to their starters. You've got to get McClanahan. You got to get through McClanahan, and then the other guys you should beat up on. If you don't beat up on them, you're missing opportunities, right? In Wacha and in Yarbrough, right? I think.
Yes.
All these long names: McClanahan, Yarbrough, Scar. Anyway, I think the
Ryan Yarbrough, Michael Wacha, Shane Baz is also in their rotation. They actually list on MLB.com. They list 6 pitchers in their rotation. Shane McClanahan tops it off as the number 1. Drew Rasmussen, Luis Patino, Ryan Yarbrough, Michael Wacha, who has obviously playoff experience from his days in St. Louis, and Shane Baz.
Yep. So again, I think if they can get through McClanahan, I don't necessarily feel as great about some of those other guys as I do McClanahan. So I think if you get through him, and then you can, especially if you can get through him and then kind of blow the bullpen up on day one, you force the Rays to kind of stretch out some of those other starters who haven't been as good. So I always try to be hesitant, right? It's so easy, any sport, baseball, basketball, hockey. It's so easy in any sport to look at game one and say, this is the pivotal game of the series. This game is going to decide blah, 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 right, whatever. And it's important. You want to get out to 1-0 lead, but we've both seen series where game one feels like years before game, even by game 4, things can monumentally shift. So, but in this one, it just, because again, the way the Rays pitching staff is structured, and because it's only a 5-game series, not 7, that game one, assuming McClanahan is starting, I actually don't know if they've made that official, but assuming McClanahan is starting,
they have.
Okay. Yes. It feels incredibly pivotal.
So their bullpen leading the way is Diego Castillo, Andrew Kittredge, Pete Fairbanks, JP Frierson, and then Dietrich Enns. All of those guys have powerful arms, and also Jeffrey Springs in there as well. The guys that strike out the most, Kittredge by far and away, 77 strikeouts and 71 2/3 innings. And, he's got 8 saves and 9 save opportunities. And as we know from Kevin Cash, he is not afraid to go to the bullpen, sometimes too early, as we found out in Game 6 of the 2020 World Series against the Dodgers. Kevin Cash has got something on the line now, too. He's trying to become the first Tampa Bay manager to win a World Series. And, this franchise has been to 2 of them and lost them both. And he would like to finally break through and give Tampa Bay a World Series.
Don't you also think there's sort of a redemption element in this for him? Right after what happened last year?
That's a great point. No question about that. However, a manager managing for redemption is a lot different than players playing for redemption themselves.
I guess I mean that more. And look, I don't know, because baseball's been taken over by the nerds, but if he makes a similar decision, or if there's other wonky decisions that cost the Rays this series, it should cost him his job. It won't, because one, there's nobody to call for it in Tampa. That team has no fans. And two, the nerds running the team will probably call him a genius and build him a statue, because they don't care about winning games. They care about bowing down to the math. But I do, like, you wonder how that factors in, that element of, he is the reason they didn't win last year. Cash is in the math is the reason. Cash's math is the reason they didn't win last year. And you wonder how that factors in. But I always forget. I go on the math tangents and then forget where I started. It was just so frustrating. But yeah, Cash.
That's so Alex.
It's so, I'm sorry. We all saw it. It was so stupid. And I hope the Rays lose because of the math again. And again, nothing will happen, because the nerds love it and they don't care about winning. They care about doing their little calculations and trying to prove how smart they are. And the outcomes don't matter, right? And actual baseball knowledge doesn't matter, because in my notebook, it all worked and whatever. But please let the math cost the Rays.
Okay, we got to get some predictions. I got to get, I got to cut you off. Got to get to predictions. I have the Tampa Bay Rays winning this series in a taut 5 games, tension filled pretty much every single game. But I just think the Rays, this is their year. This is the season where I think they finally cap it off with a World Series crown and give Tampa Bay one more title to raise up and have a victory procession down the canal there, where the Vince Lombardi Trophy went swimming.
Didn't go swimming. Did not go swimming. Brady's not missing that pass. Come on, let's be honest. I actually have the Red Sox in 4. I do. I think they lose one of the 2 in Tampa, and then they take care of business at home. Like we talked about on the last show, to me, this is a snowball team. I think this is a team that heavily steers into momentum, whether it's good or bad. And they win the game on Sunday to avoid the play-in and host the wild card. They win the wild card game. I think this is a team that feels really good about themselves right now. And when they feel good about themselves, they're as good as any team in baseball. We kind of saw last night how that momentum picked up, and they just, they fed off it and they kept going. And I think that continues. I really think it does. And I don't think the Rays are special. I think the Rays are good. I'm not saying they're necessarily overrated, but especially without Glasnow, I think they're just another team. I think the whole field in the AL East, from the Rays to the Yankees, and including Chicago and Houston and Tampa, I think it's all relatively even. All the teams have their strengths. All the teams have their weaknesses. And I don't, it's not like the NL, where there's the Giants and the Dodgers just looming as these 2 giant figures.
I think the Brewers are going to come out of the National League.
Everybody keeps saying that. People I was with last night said that too. But I think the AL's wide open. I think the Red Sox have the mojo right now. I'm going Red Sox in 4. I think they win it on Marathon Monday. And please, Major League Baseball, please play that game at 11 in the morning. It would just be perfect. It would be so cool.
I don't think that's going to happen. But
they want it. There's a report out now. They want it. The Red Sox want it.
Yeah, but I can't, for TV purposes, I can't see them doing it. But who knows? You never know at this point.
Well, according to John Tomasi, they do have to fit 4 games in that day into the broadcast schedule. So an early game's not out of the question.
All right. Maybe I'll buy it after all. Maybe I'll buy that after all. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for downloading this special emergency Red Sox Beat podcast to discuss the victory over the New York Yankees in the American League wildcard showdown and preview the American League Divisional Series coming up. Best of 5 series. You can watch the game number 1 Thursday night at 8 p.m. on FS1, the Red Sox and the Rays from Tropicana Field. I want to thank our terrific guests, as always, Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. Follow him on Twitter at @RealAlexBarth, all one word. Also want to thank our terrific sponsors, as always, Legends Brand. For Alex Barth, I'm Mike Petraglia, and this has been the Red Sox Beat podcast, powered by CLNS Media.